Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Spotlight with Scientists in School. Scientists in School is an educational charity. We get kids excited about science, tech, engineering, and math through community and classroom workshops. It's also exciting that we have launched virtual workshops this year called Scientists in Situ. Information can be found on our website, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Finally, we have a crowdfunding page called Stand Up for Future Scientists. Donations will help us recover from the impact of COVID-19, and we can continue to provide workshops to youth across Canada. To date, we have inspired over 10 million students. Today, I get to shine a spotlight on a scientist who is sequencing the DNA of complex neurological disorders. Okay, hi everyone. I'm Betty Bakopoulos, and we have with us a special guest, Farah Qaiser. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'm totally excited. Like I told you before, I've done a lot of research and I just think you're just simply amazing. You have accomplished so much already. I'm going to let people know what you've done and feel free to correct me if I get anything wrong. So you're a grad student at the University of Toronto where you're doing DNA sequencing right now. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But it doesn't stop there. You are also part of Canada's Chief Science Advisory Council. So Dr. Mona Niemer has a youth council and you're part of that, which is very exciting. So I hope we get to chat about that. What I found really interesting is your Wikipedia Edit-A-Thons. So I want to make sure we talk about that. And you're also the co-founder of Toronto Sciencey Policy Network at the U of T. Do you have time to relax?
I mean, I've been watching a lot of Disney these days, so I want to say yes.
You're watching Disney, that's funny. So you call yourself a genomic scientist. What does that, if we have youth, young children watching, and they want to grow up and be a scientist just like you, what would you say that is?
Sure. So genomics is all about our DNA. So inside all of our cells, you've got that little chunk of DNA, which kind of codes all the different proteins and molecules that help the body do all the amazing things it does. So our DNA is over 3 billion base pairs. I'll say 3 billion base pairs large. So that's a lot of different letters. Similar to how letters make up words in a sentence, is how letters in our DNA make up genes. And with over 3 billion letters, you know that mistakes and typos are going to happen. So kind of as a genomic scientist, I'm a bit of a DNA detective. I will go through our DNA and kind of see, all right, there's a typo here, there's a typo there, there's a big change here. Oh no, there's a chunk missing. And kind of my job as a DNA detective here is to understand, well, is this change in our DNA actually going to result in a change that we can see in our body? Or is this just one of those changes where it's junk, it's not actually going to have an effect? So as a DNA detective, I'm kind of looking at our DNA, trying to understand what different changes mean in different people. Specifically, I'm doing DNA sequencing in individuals with different neurological disorders. So I'm interested in epilepsies, in autism spectrum disorder, and ataxia. So I spend a lot of my day kind of staring at my screen, looking at a lot of DNA, just being like, I don't think this one's interesting. Next.
And move on. See, I like the way you explain things. And I think after this, there's going to be a lot of kids Googling DNA detective because that sounds pretty cool. It is pretty cool. And I actually saw you once explain DNA to young kids. And you said just that like letters, when you put them together, they make words, which make sentences, which make a paragraph, and they tell a story. And the story that you used was Harry Potter. And that got my kids really excited. So I think that's actually really a great way of sharing your experience so that kids can understand, trying to make it relatable. So I thought that's really great. So that's what a genomic scientist does. Now, I also heard or read that you describe yourself, like you wear a lot of hats. You describe yourself as a scientist and a science writer, but that you also really like telling stories about science and scientists. Do you have a favorite story that you'd like to share?
I think there are two fun ones that I always love sharing. So the first is a story that I came across very randomly. It's about how scientists they froze their own poop and they tried to fashion it into knives to see if knives made out of frozen human poop could actually work. They were actually testing whether an old Inuit myth was true. So they wanted to see. There was a story of how this man was in an igloo. He was all alone. It was night. There were wolves outside. Apparently, he fashioned his poop into knives and he fought off the wolves, which is amazing. But the scientists here were kind of curious, like, is this actually possible? Can this
And
be true? Unfortunately, no. Human poop knives do not hold up. And like the scientists were super rigorous. So they actually took their own poop. They
right.
tried different diets. They tried fashioning out different knives, and they were just like, yeah, this doesn't work, whether it's on pig fat, pig skin,
Right.
animal flesh, like it doesn't work, which I just find it hilarious that they first went all the way, like they
Yes.
committed their own poop into doing this research.
All for the love of science.
It really shows that there's science for everyone, and just if you don't like genomics, there's so much more out
There's
there.
so much more. So now I can see Google trending. We've got DNA detective, and now we've got poop knives.
There's a lot more, but those are two good ones to start off with.
That is a good one. So I'm really curious what got you on the path of science. Did you have someone who inspired you when you were young? How did you become a genomic scientist?
So I had no idea that genomics was even a thing when I was in high school, in undergrad. Like all of this is new to me.
Right.
So kind of how in high school I was interested in science. I loved learning about biology. I had some really great teachers who just helped inspire me and just encouraged me to learn a lot. I also really love reading and writing. So you can kind of see these books that I have in the back because I read a lot.
Yeah, we're the same.
Pretty much. And I always wanted kind of a way to bring together science and my love for reading and writing. I never saw that in high school, but that's always kind of been in the back of my head and it's kind of driven me forward.
Mm-hmm.
So when I applied to undergrad, I was like kind of looking through programs. I was like, biological chemistry, molecular biology, like all of these are big buzzwords. I don't know what they are. In the end, I went with molecular biology because I just had this idea. It's like, I want to know more about cells. I want to know more about DNA. That's pretty much all my thinking process was when I was like, yep, molecular biology. That's what we're going to do.
Right.
So when I came to Canada, this was like 2014, and I started my degree in molecular biology. I was having so much fun. I was learning so much. It was like, this was the time of my life. But I still really wanted to read and write. Like I wanted to incorporate that love of reading and writing into my daily life. So I found out that my campus actually has a student-run newspaper called The Medium, and I decided I'm going to write for it. No one could stop me. This is my thing.
That's right.
So I started writing. So I would learn about science in my classes. I would write about science for the campus newspaper. At the end of the first year, I was actually elected to lead my features section. And no one stopped me, but I kind of turned the feature section into a science section. So I would kind of get my student writers to profile different things happening on campus, different professors, different students doing research. So basically all of undergrad, I was learning about science and I was reading about science. But the thing is, like, as I was doing both of these, I realized that there are actually a lot of different issues in science.
Right.
For example, there's a lack of diversity in science. You don't see a lot of members of marginalized communities pursuing science beyond undergrad. Or there's the fact that science is very technical. It's always written in very big, difficult words that I still struggle with, and it's hard to understand or even find or access in the first place. So as I kind of learned more about these issues, when I went into graduate school, I still wanted to do my research. I still wanted to write about science, but I also wanted to do something to kind of address these issues. So for example, one of my focuses has been on kind of empowering scientists to address these issues themselves. That's one of the reasons I co-founded the Toronto Science Policy Network, so kind of a space for both students and researchers to learn about and engage in science policies, kind of using their science to help decision makers make decisions, plus making sure that the science that they're doing is actually reaching the people who are interested and want them most. I've also done quite a bit of science outreach. So for example, one of my friends founded this group called Step into STEM, which is really focused on kind of getting people without access to science, people who face systemic barriers, and providing them experiential opportunities to learn. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of luck also.
Yeah. But there's always luck involved, but you've touched on so many things. I thought this is why we thought you were a perfect fit with scientists in school. All that stuff you said, first of all, falling in love with science, right? And there's a lot of kids who think at a young age that it's boring or they're not going to be good at it. And that's what I love about scientists in school. We get them exposed to science as young as 3 years old. And a lot of them come away saying, you know, it actually is fun, or you have this preconceived idea of what science is, and you don't realize how many branches there are or what they can do, which is really exciting. And then the inclusive science culture is something that's really important to us as well, and having diverse presenters from all different backgrounds, right? So when a student is sitting in their class, the person who's at the front perhaps looks like them. So yeah, these are all topics that are just so important, and it's really nice that there's platforms where we can have these conversations nowadays, right? Which is really good. So what kind of conversations are you having, let's say, with the Chief Science Advisors Youth Council?
So I do want to flag that when this Youth Council was announced, it was in March. So this is all pretty new and early, and we're still figuring ourselves out, but I'm very excited to be one of the 20 young scientists on this council. There were over 1,000 applications.
Over 1,000.
When I saw that first, I was just like, I'm going to lower my hopes just a lot. But somehow I'm here, and it's really exciting to be part of such 20 different scientists. Like, everyone has their own background. Everyone brings their own unique perspective, and together that's kind of our role, to bring perspectives of Canada's young science population to the Chief Science Advisor, to Dr. Mona Nemer, kind of identifying the issues and the challenges that Canada's young population is facing, and providing recommendations or just suggesting, hey, this is an issue that we should flag and we should do something about. Canada's young population, like, they're contributing to our science landscape in so many different ways, whether it's doing research, whether it's advocating for climate action, whether it's forming groups and addressing so many different challenges, that this is a big responsibility, which I take very seriously. And I'm very excited to see what everyone is doing, and I'm very excited to kind of do what I can to support it, whether it's me as a person or whether it's me advocating on the Youth Council.
I saw the number of applications too, and I was like, kudos to the 20 that are in there, and that's pretty special that you get to have a voice and speak on the youth of on behalf of the youth of Canada. It's pretty exciting. Now,
big shoes.
It is big shoes, but I think you will do a great job. The other thing I found totally interesting is that you run Wikipedia Edit-A-Thons. Now, when I first read that title, I thought edit meant that you were looking for mistakes that are on there, but it actually is addressing gender bias. Can you tell us a little bit about Wikipedia Edit-A-Thons?
Sure. So I'm just going to take a step back in case people don't know about Wikipedia, which I would think is really odd. So Wikipedia is actually the 5th most popular website. Pretty much everyone who has time or internet connection can kind of go to it and learn more, whether it's for your homework or learning about what's going on in the world. Now, even though Wikipedia is such a big open access platform, and anyone can technically edit it, so anyone can add to the information in Wikipedia, anyone can create a new page, it just has to be backed up by sources. Despite all of this openness, there are actually quite a few gender biases and racial biases in Wikipedia. For example, if you look at the number of biographies on English Wikipedia, you find that women are only around 18 or 20%. The number is like slowly increasing, but I think it was around 18%. So that's really low. Like 18%
very low.
is
very low.
tiny.
Yeah.
So when I first learned about this, I was incredibly surprised. I was just like, what? Yeah. And like, I had never seen it myself, even though I use Wikipedia so much that it just blew my mind. I learned that there were scientists like Dr. Jess Wade and Dr. Miriam Zarengalam who are actively editing Wikipedia, so creating new biographies. Dr. Jess Wade was actually creating one page a day for a new woman scientist. She's now branched out to just scientists in general, marginalized scientists. So that was really exciting. So I was kind of learning about this issue and just being blown away when I learned that the professor from the University of Toronto had passed away. So her name was Dr. Miriam Rossi. I was kind of just reading her obituary, and I was just like, I want to know more about this woman. She's done incredible work. And
let me guess, no Wikipedia page on
there
her.
Was no Wikipedia page. And I was like, what? Yeah. She's amazing. So basically, I think it was around 9 or 8 at night that evening. I was just like, nope,
I'm getting on there.
I can fix. And I just sat down, and it was kind of my first page, my first ever thing. So I was just like, gotta do it right, gotta do it right. And then the funny thing is, I kind of wrote up my whole page, but I probably ignored the one rule that every teacher says, which is save your work. So I did not save my work, and I actually lost my entire page. But even though it was like 11 at that point, I was like, nope, we're going to do this again, and we're going to save our work this time. So Dr. Miriam Rossi ended up being my first Wikipedia page that I ever wrote. She has made like incredible contributions to reshaping medical education. She was incredible, and I was just like, that's kind of what inspires me to do Wikipedia editing. I don't edit as much these days, but whenever I see kind of this blank page, I'm like, nope, we're gonna fix that because people are Googling and the people want to know more about the person. Wikipedia pops up right there, and it's a really important way to make an impact. Like, if people will run in more often into pages from women, from marginalized scientists on Wikipedia, they kind of see themselves more in STEM, and that's how we can kind of build that inclusive science culture. There's so many ways to build inclusive science culture, and like editing Wikipedia is just one of them.
For sure. So do you think the number has gone up, or are we still sitting at 18%?
It has, because previously it was around 14%. And it's like chipping away to be higher. Mm-hmm. But it's not just like me, it's a lot of scientists, and it's a lot of Wikipedia Edit-A-Thons. So Edit-A-Thons are like where a number of people will come together and they will just edit madly, so like typing around the keyboards for like 2 or 3 hours. And those ones make a lot of impact, because it's just when you get together and you do things together, you have a bigger impact generally.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I think you actually have somewhere on the internet, there's actually a step-by-step. So if you come across a woman that you think there should be a Wikipedia page written up about, you actually have all the steps right there, and someone could go. So is there one about you?
There is not one about me because I haven't done things yet. But yes, there are so many different guides about Wikipedia editing. Literally give it a Google and you will find something. And it's pretty easy. Like, it's using Wikipedia is basically like using Google Docs or Microsoft Word. It's just typing and linking your sources. The hardest thing really is finding sources. Because one of the issues is that, yes, Wikipedia has a gender bias, but it's not entirely Wikipedia's fault. Wikipedia can only cite news articles or published pieces. So if there aren't enough published pieces about women, about marginalized scientists, then we can't have a page. So that's kind of like a circular problem. We need more Wikipedia pages, but we need more media coverage to get those Wikipedia pages.
Well, we're all stuck at home with COVID-19. Now you've given us a lot of things to think about, and this could be something that someone's really interested in doing. I think it's great. The other thing I found really interesting is that despite all this work that you do, because you're so busy, you love to read cliched dystopian novels. So I don't know where you find the time, but I thought that was very interesting. What are you reading right now?
Right now, I'm trying really hard to read the Lord of the Rings series. It's just been something I've wanted to read for a long time, but they're just so long.
They're long. Those are long ones, yeah.
But I'm like 3/4 of the way through The Hobbit right now, so I'm just like, I'm getting there. This is the start of the 4 books.
Yeah, that's a long series. I did see that you wrote an article, I absolutely loved it, about Game of Thrones, where there's a book about a physicist, I think, who looks at the science behind all the Game of Thrones. My daughter thought that was great because she's read all the novels.
I've like read Game of Thrones, and I've watched Game of Thrones. I hated the last season. Let's get into it, but
we should do another interview on that.
I could go on for
I'm sure you, well, I think you should meet my oldest daughter. You two have a lot in common. So what's your favorite dystopian novel then, before I let you go?
I think at this point, I'm a bit of a sucker for Percy Jackson and Harry Potter. Yes. They're not as much dystopian. I think they fall more into childhood dystopian, but I kind of grew up with them, and I love them. They're just like watching Percy and Harry and Hermione kind of grow throughout the books was always pretty inspirational to me. And in the middle of everything I'm doing, I don't get to read as much, but I love going back to these 2 books because it kind of just, I fall back into a world that I know and I love, and I love seeing how they grow again and again.
That is so great. I want to thank you so much for taking this time. I know that there are young kids out there that are going to be Googling DNA detectives. Hopefully they're not making knives out of poop, but hopefully not. This has been so great. You're so inspirational to so many of us. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
Thank you so much for having me and for launching this Q&A series. It's one thing that everyone can kind of tune into to learn about the different aspects of science.
The different scientists. Yeah, actually, this is a good time to let everybody know that I hope you keep tuning in. We have an amazing lineup this summer. Up next is the Toronto Zoo, which should be fun. I will reveal the animal closer to the date that we're going to be looking at and talking about. Please consider donating to our fundraising campaign. COVID-19 you know, has hit us hard like it's hit many charities. So every donation helps. And once again, thank you so much, Farah.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye.